What's up everybody, Maran here for another weekly update. There's lots of exciting news to go over here this week, but before I get into the news, I first want to mention I'll be doing my usual weekly live stream on Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time, so join if you can. It's always a fun time hanging out and talking cars with all of you. But moving on to the news here this week, the first big debut here is that Acura has revealed the 2025 ADX. And so, like we expected, it appears to be Acura's version of the HR-V with a few key improvements. And I think it looks great, honestly. And size-wise, it's 6 inches longer than an HR-V and about 1.6 inches shorter than an RDX and about almost 2 inches lower than an RDX, just for comparison's sake. But the main improvement is that it throws out the HR-V's less powerful naturally aspirated four-cylinder and puts in the 1.5 liter turbo 4 from the Integra. They didn't quote power yet for some reason, even though I'm pretty sure it'll basically be doing 200 horsepower or so like it does in the Integra and everything else that uses this motor. But unfortunately, unlike the Integra, here it's only available with a CVT. Front-wheel drive is standard, but all-wheel drive is an option. Inside is where you can see the HR-V influence there the most, with doing the same kind of thing as the Integra, with retaining the Honda infotainment, gauges, and switchgear. But there are, of course, the nice Acura upgrades like a 15-speaker Bang & Olufsen stereo that's available, a 12-way power driver's seat, and a heated steering wheel. And, so some nice little improvements for sure. Makes it a little more premium than that HR-V. And for now, Acura only says it'll start in the mid-$30,000 range, so kind of the same as Integra as well there, and it'll go on sale in early 2025. So, I mean, that's a nice savings, considering an RDX starts at like 46, so, still gives you a little crossover that's not that much smaller than the RDX, and some really good stuff there. So, yeah, great to hear that and see that. Lexus this week has revealed the refreshed ES at a Chinese auto show this past week, and while these changes may be just for China, it's pretty safe to assume we'll get this refreshed for the ES as our 2026 model year car. So it gets a new grille, bumper, and lights up front, along with a new light bar and rear bumper there in the back. Inside is fairly predictable, incorporating that new 14-inch Lexus touchscreen that unfortunately removes the physical climate controls, along with other small little tweaks. And it sounds like the powertrain is mostly all carryover here, and so we'll see what they do for the States, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see it go all hybrid like the Camry, but maybe they could have a non-hybrid version to differentiate it. We'll see. But so interesting to get that first look there at that one. Honda has also done a big debut here for the 2026 Passport this week, and we now have all the info on it, including pricing and all these other things as well. So as far as the Passport here, you can see that it is a lot more different, thankfully, for this generation than the Pilot that it's based on, with totally unique body panels and styling. It's got a 2.8-inch longer wheelbase, a wider track, and shorter front overhang for an improved approach angle and ground clearance. Mechanically, it gets all the same stuff from the new Pilot, including the newer 3.5-liter V6 and 10-speed auto combo, which will be great for people that aren't excited about the 4Runner, going turbo. You have the good old V6 here in this if you want it. And they say that 10-speed auto has unique tuning for the Passport as well. And as a refresher, that engine means you get 285 horsepower, which is 5 more than the old V6, but the same 262 pound-feet of torque as that old Passport. It also gets Honda's torque vectoring all-wheel drive system as standard, and it does get some unique suspension bits to make it a little more rugged, including forged steel suspension arms, cast iron knuckles, retuned struts, and an all-new multi-link rear suspension. There's also the bigger 13.8-inch brakes from the Pilot here as well. It continues to tow 5,000 pounds, and the Trail Sport versions get steel skid plates as well. And inside, that longer wheelbase provides 1.3 inches of extra rear legroom and more cargo space as well. And thankfully, the interior is a nice improvement over the Pilot, finally putting the Accord's bigger 12.4-inch infotainment screen in one of their SUVs. And it's standard on all 3 trims, as is this 10.2-inch digital gauge cluster. There are some things, though, that are reserved for only the Trail Sport Elite trim, including perforated and ventilated leather front seats, rear climate controls, sunshades, and a 12-speaker Bose stereo. There's also a new-to-Passport panoramic moonroof that comes on the 2 Trail Sport trims. And speaking of those 3 trims, it's a bit odd the way they structured this, in my opinion. So it starts with a traditionally higher RTL trim, and this is keeping in line with this trend that Honda's doing of ditching a lot of their entry-level trims and starting everything at these higher price points, which is unfortunate. So that means that every Passport is required to have leather seats, a power lift gate, and a bunch of other stuff that, again, people may or may not actually need or want, but there's no choice for anything less, and that's unfortunate. But from there, there's also the Trail Sport and then the Trail Sport Elite trim, meaning if you want all the luxury features on that top one, you have to deal with also all the off-road stuff as well, meaning all-terrain tires you get on these Trail Sport versions, orange recovery hooks, all that off-road protection with the skid plates and all that. You are forced to ride around with orange recovery hooks if you want the most luxurious Passport. I mean, I'm sure they hopefully did the research, and I guess every single person that wants a luxurious Passport also takes it off-road or wants to think that they will take it off-road, and are fine with sacrificing the ride quality as a result and sticking out like a sore thumb in the process. Maybe that is true. Maybe that's what the research suggests, but surely there has to be some people that just want a luxurious one and don't need the off-road stuff. But I don't know. I mean, even Toyota offers luxurious versions of the 4Runner for people who don't plan to take those off-road. So seems kind of strange here that they went in this direction. But anyway, so moving on here, it'll start in the mid $40,000 price range. So a slight increase over the current Passport, and it'll go on sale sometime in early 2025, they say. So coming very soon here. Volkswagen this week has revealed the details for the US versions of the Mark 8.5 Volkswagen Golf R and GTI. And there's some good and bad news here. So starting with the GTI, the bad news is we won't get a horsepower bump like Europe gets, and they'll continue here with 241 horsepower, which, you know, again, is still fine. But when Motor One asked why it's not getting the horsepower bump it gets in Europe, Volkswagen's head of PR strangely blamed it on US emissions regulations, and that this would have required them to re-engineer the exhaust system if they wanted to bring the power bump to the US, even though Europe definitely has the stricter emissions regulations, and I'm not sure why they couldn't just bring the European exhaust over here. Seems like the exact opposite. You know, I feel like that makes zero sense to me, but whatever, you know, it's not a huge difference in horsepower. People who want more power can easily tune these things and get more anyway. But regardless, they also, of course, confirmed with this US release there is no more manuals. It's all the, DSG transmissions here, unfortunately. We knew that for a long time, but still just sad to, see these continuing on, with no manual. But otherwise, we all get the same Mark 8.5 changes that the rest of Europe got, including the revised lighting, bigger screen on the inside, and the return of real buttons to the steering wheel of the GTI. Unfortunately, the Golf R sticks with the capacitive touch buttons on its wheel instead for some reason. I'm not sure why they couldn't swap the same stuff they swapped on the GTI. But other than the steering wheel, the Golf R does get some nice improvements that we saw for Europe, including 13 more horsepower for a total of 328 horsepower now, a new black edition, which we are also getting just like Europe, and also a package for North America that's called the Euro style package, that awesomely offers cloth seats as an option, but bundles that also with a sunroof delete, a forged 19-inch wheels, and an Akrapovic titanium exhaust. So a little bit more of a hardcore version, but it's cool they pair it with the cloth seats. It's just I'm happy to see that, because I don't think we've seen cloth seats in an R since maybe the R32. Someone can probably correct me on that. I'm not an expert on Volkswagens, but just really cool, because they've always been kind of more upmarket, and so having it with cloth is cool. But anyway, we still don't have pricing or a release date for these, but they are calling them 2025s. So I would have to assume that we're going to see these in the first half of 2025. At some point, and they say, more pricing and details will be released as we get closer to the reveal there, or the release here for the States. But in other Volkswagen news here, they teased the 2025 Tiguan for the US here that will be revealed next week ahead of the LA Auto Show. And they say nothing to accompany this teaser image, just showing the taillight here for now. And so I'll be covering that and all the LA Auto Show debuts here next week. And Jaguar this week, wow, this was a shocker. They teased us with their first look at the new Jaguar car that they've been working on, and also this previews their design language going forward. And even if it is still heavily camouflaged, there's no hiding that very long hood, the blocky front end, those gigantic wheels, and a very impressive road presence. I mean, just look at that thing. That is really, it almost looks like it's something out of like a comic book or something, in my opinion. But Jaguar's managing director added that in terms of proportions, it is very far from what we do today. To get there, I divided the design team into 3 groups. Within 3 months, they produced 17 full-size models with different design languages. Some were familiar, others looked like something out of science fiction movies. The design language we chose is exuberant. Just think of something that will be really different on the road. And in December, we will unveil our new design language. And when that reveal happens here on December 2nd, to be exact, at Miami's Art Week is when they're going to reveal it. This car will be shown alongside 3 other concepts from Jaguar as well, to show off how this design language will translate to other models. So the safe bet here is, obviously it seems like the sedan is going to be the first one, but of course we will probably see an SUV. I would assume we will see just basically this design language turned into an SUV. To me, I roughly imagine a Rolls-Royce Cullinan in a way, just with some Jaguar flourishes, just because we have that same kind of proportion here to a Rolls-Royce or something almost. And I mean, I'd love to see if this translates to some kind of swanky sports car that has a super long hood like an E-Type. We will see, but I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, I'm hoping that these proportions, this really impressive design, hopefully that really helps us sway those very wealthy buyers that are going to need to be swayed from the Bentleys and the Maseratis and the Porsches that Jaguar is now targeting with their move up market, and also really convincing people, because these will all, at least according to what we heard previously as the plan, all these are going to be electric, which also means it's going to be an uphill battle there for that. So I mean, it sounds like this design could knock everyone's socks off and be an absolute knockout that people just line up for. And I think Jaguar desperately needs that hype. They need the win. I want to see them get that win. And hopefully with bold designs like that, hopefully, in the details, once the camo comes off, hopefully we actually aren't disappointed. But that seems very, very promising there. And yeah, what a shocking design so far, just from the proportions alone. So very exciting to see that. Let me know what you think about that in the comments below. Speaking of Porsche here, they're continuing the rollout of trims for the refreshed Taycan here this week. So like the others, they're continuing their giant power bumps here with these for each of these trims. So one of the 2 debuts this week was the GTS version, which gets a 100 horsepower bump to 690 horsepower now, and includes a push to pass button that gives you 93 more horsepower for 10 seconds. It drops the 0 to 60 time to 3.1 seconds and does an 11.1 second quarter mile time. It also gets the electric sound sport sound software the Turbo S version gets. And this extra punch isn't free though, with prices rising almost $9,000 for the GTS, now starting at $149,895 including destination. The other new trim this week here is the return of the regular Taycan 4, which now is available not only in the Cross Turismo version, which thankfully those are still continuing, which is great, but it's also going to be available here in the sedan for the first time. And so it does 402 horsepower now in launch mode, 429 horsepower with a bigger battery option, and 0 to 62 times drop as low as 4.4 seconds for a base all-wheel drive Taycan. So a very impressive, baseline there. This entry version also gives you things like an adaptive air suspension and matrix LED lights as standard as well, which is nice because even these starting entry-level versions of the Taycan are pricey, starting at $105,295. You can still get the regular base Taycan and rear-wheel drive that's less, but I mean, that's still, six-figure car for a starting point for these things is crazy. But both these new trims are available to order now, and the first cars will be arriving in the U.S. At dealers in March. So really impressive improvements, though, as far as just heaping on extra horsepower by the hundreds is just nuts. And about 11 months ago, Cadillac showed us the first 2 images of the VISTIQ, which is their new electric 3-row crossover here to slot between the Lyriq and the Escalade IQ. Now they've revealed more, including the interior details and pricing and some of the mechanical stuff as well. So as far as the details, it's on a wheelbase that's almost the same length as the Escalade IQ, but the VISTIQ is lower, shorter, and narrower. So it is, a smaller vehicle, for appropriate downtime downsized there from the Escalade there. On the inside, it doesn't get the impressive pillar-to-pillar screen of the Escalade either, instead using the 33-inch setup we see in the Lyriq and other Cadillacs, which is, still obviously very nice, but, just not quite, again, as high-end as that Escalade for that differentiation. It still is available with other high-end features, though, like a standard 23-speaker AKG stereo with Dolby Atmos, standard Super Cruise, 5-zone climate control, and bidirectional charging, and even stuff like night vision, road noise cancellation, and active rear steer are available. Mechanically, it'll run the 102 kilowatt usable battery that can do 300 miles of range and combines with 2 motors for all-wheel drive, 615 horsepower, and 650 pound-feet of torque. It'll do a crazy 3.7 seconds 0 to 60 time, which is crazy. We're under 4 seconds for a Cadillac 3-row crossover. It's crazy, but production begins in early 2025 for the luxury, sport, and premium luxury trims, with a platinum trim they say coming next summer with added performance. And so it'll start at $78,790, including destination, which actually isn't bad. I mean, yes, that's more expensive than like an XT6, which this kind of is replacing, but you look at how expensive the Escalade IQ, I think those are going to be, well over 6 figures. Yes, this is smaller. Yes, this isn't as high tech, but, it's not that far off. And honestly, it looks fairly similar, in my opinion, as well, for a really nice discount. And yes, again, that is a big step up from a Lyriq as far as pricing goes as well. But I don't know. I think actually I'm pleasantly surprised with the price. I thought this was going to be more expensive. So again, that's starting. I'm sure these again could hit almost 6 figures for loaded ones or something, but still just really, I think, well done, and looking forward to seeing more of that. And for the last news story here this week, Mopar Insiders is reporting that their sources claim that Dodge is adjusting their plans for the gas version of the Charger, the new Charger. So they initially had planned to start production of that one towards the end of 2025, so about, a year away from now. But it's supposedly now in response to consumer demand and all the pushback, I'm sure, with every single thing Dodge posts just having a ton of negative comments all the time. They are instead planning to start production of the gas-powered version 5 months earlier, having them begin production in early summer of 2025. So people actually have these things arriving at dealers, just in time for the summer driving season and the fun months for enthusiasts. And I think that's, really great, because hopefully this helps the adoption of the new Charger with, I think a lot of people actually excited about the design, but waiting for the gas version. And instead of having them be on the sidelines all next year and having their cars start to be delivered in the middle of winter, now they'll be able to enjoy the gas-powered new Charger this summer. And of course, they are still shipping the electric one first. That is, supposed to arrive, because they're starting with 2024s. Those are supposed to, they have to arrive before the end of the year if they're 2024s. So they're on a time crunch there, but they say they really want to, perfect the software, get as many of the bugs out of it as they can to make it, really solid from the get-go there. So we will see how that plays out. But I think this is great to respond to the feedback. And again, this is the great option of giving people the choice. Do you want gas? Do you want electric? Here's both, and they're coming out, in a really relatively close time period to each other, and I hope that it helps the success of the Charger here. But anyway, interesting to hear that. And lastly, I want to thank all of you that are members of the Matt Maran Motoring Club. So we did have a lot of new members that joined this week, many of them thanks to the very generous gifting that was done during last week's live stream. So I want to give a huge thank you to those who gifted. So huge thanks to MDKN, Kyle, Linda Hamill, the Trucking Car Guy, Brian Harrington, Sean Brewer, Luke O, and Shane Lockett. Thank you all so much for your generosity in last week's live stream here. And, I, of course, really appreciate the support. And I'm sure all of those who have gotten those gifted memberships also really appreciate that as well. So thank you all. And I also want to give a big welcome here to those new members that were gifted those memberships, including AM, Cesar Visions, Juan Ortiz, Queef, Anthend, Brian, David, Co, Scoop 205, Nick J, Dylan Short, Douglas Hernandez, 314 Jeeps and Mopars, Ricky Moore, Glock Boy, CJ, For the Love of Noise, Charles Hahn, and Abugeker Omar. Hopefully I didn't butcher that too badly. So welcome to all of you. Hope you're going to enjoy all the membership perks here. Definitely let me know if you want to get into the Discord server. Be more than happy to send you the link for that. And yeah, obviously just all the membership perks like that priority answering. Looking forward to chatting with all of you who now are members there in the live stream here this week. And we also had one new member that joined on their own, Jeffrey Diesel. So thank you so much, Jeffrey, for your support and for, actually supporting the channel with your own money as well. I really appreciate that, and hope you enjoy the membership perks as well. And for anyone else that'd like to join and get those membership perks, including that priority answering in the live stream and all the other perks that come with being a member, there's always join buttons here on the video page, on the channel page, and a link in the description. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Please leave a like and subscribe to keep these videos coming, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.